Rahman Rahim. Last time we started talking about the Sirah, and I stopped short of finishing the Meccan period. So we'll start with it today, inshallah. So this is the biography of the Prophet ﷺ in Medina, but we're going to start with just before he went to Medina, because we didn't finish it last time. These are some of the references I recommended last time. I really recommend that you get a short book of Sirah if that's the first time you learn about Sirah. So get a short book. Some of these books are very long. So I recommend, for example, the Martin Ling. It's one of my favorites. It's a medium-sized book. It's not a very big book to read. The others are more like like references. So the Medina period is really started from the first year of Hijrah until the 11th year of Hijrah when the Prophet ﷺ passed away. And it's basically three major periods. Periods of conflicts with Quraysh. Quraysh just could not really relate to that the Prophet ﷺ escaped to Medina. So that lasted from the first year of Hijrah until the 6th year of Hijrah. Then there was a truce with Quraysh from 6th to the 8th year of Hijrah when Quraysh broke the truce. And then there was a period of peace where Islam spread all over Arabia. So that was 3 years from 8 to 11. So these are the topics that I hope to cover today, but there are so many of them. The call beyond Mecca, I did a typo here. This is beyond Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ reached the conclusion that Quraysh is so arrogant and have their ego that they don't want to really to let the Prophet ﷺ spread his message. And the event of Isra al-Miraj, which is one of the most important events in the history of the Prophet. And then he went to Medina, and the establishment of a government in Medina, the confrontation with Quraysh, the truce of Hudaybiyah on the 6th year of Hijrah, and then Quraysh violating the truce, which led to the Prophet coming back to Mecca victorious. And then the period of peace and Arabia accepting Islam. So these are the three periods. Before these three periods, I'm going to talk about before the Prophet ﷺ immigrated to Medina. We really stopped at the 10th year of revelation, not Hijrah, revelation. And how many years before Hijrah, before immigration? 10th year of revelation is how many years? I'm not quizzing, but I'm just trying to keep everybody awake. It was 3 years before Hijrah. So the 10th year after revelation was the toughest year of the Prophet ﷺ, toughest for the Muslims. It was really as far as the persecution, it was really the worst that could happen to the Prophet and those around him. So he started looking beyond Mecca. Is there anybody else in Arabia who would be receptive to the da'wah of monotheism? And as you know, that paganism spread in Arabia since the second century after Christ. So that's Arabia was entrenched with paganism. And it was very difficult really to convince them of going back to the teachings of Prophet Ibrahim, their forefather. So he started looking elsewhere. So he went to Taif. He spent 10 days inviting them, and it was very, very painful for him. People humiliated him. They sent their kids. They threw stones at him. And then on the way back to Mecca, Jibreel came to the Prophet, Angel Jibreel, told him, if you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to punish them, you would punish them. And he said, I hope that Allah will bring from their offsprings people who would accept Islam. So Prophet ﷺ was very soft-hearted. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kind of it was an event where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started showing the Prophet ﷺ some of the most outstanding events. He sent him to the jinn. So Prophet ﷺ was not sent to only human beings, he was sent to the jinn also. So the jinns came and he invited them to Islam. And that's related to in chapter 46 in the Quran, called Surah Al-Jinn. And as I mentioned before, the jinn are other creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we don't see. They see us, but we don't see them. And they whisper to us. They are of the same essence of Satan. Satan is from the jinn. So the jinn, there are some of them that are good, some are bad. And I explained this before. Some jinn are pious and they try to avoid human beings. Most jinn are afraid of human beings like we are afraid of them. Sometimes they can manifest themselves. But they are afraid of us also like we are afraid of them. So they keep away from us. And most scholars say that the jinn concentrates in empty places. And that's why you hear about the ghosts in these empty buildings and old castles where nobody's there. They might be jinn there. What people call ghosts in the West here, these are jinns. They are not spirits. And the jinns live very long time. So that's why sometimes people who connect with the jinn, and there are ways to connect with the jinns that are forbidden. The Prophet ﷺ told us there's nothing good will come out of it. So some people who connect to the ghosts, what they call ghosts or spirits, they connect with some of these jinns and they can tell them about their parents or pretend that they are parents and so on because they lived a very long time. And it's a way to really distract and to mislead human beings. Good jinns don't do that. Good jinns will not connect with human beings. They try to avoid connecting with human beings. So anybody who says, I have connection with the ghost, this is something that's not appropriate. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Prophet to the jinn, and that was kind of uplifting for him. And when he went back to Mecca, he had to seek the protection of some of the elders of Mecca because he had no protection anymore. His wife had died, and his uncle had died, and he was his protector. So he came without any protection. Of course, he had the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he started looking beyond Mecca. And every year, particularly during the pilgrimage time, and that was the old pilgrimage of Prophet Ibrahim that was converted to coming and putting idols and so on in Mecca. He would go and talk to the tribes. And many tribes liked his call, but they always put conditions. They always put conditions for the Prophet. Like a chief of tribe told, okay, we will follow you, and all of Arabia is going to be against us. We are willing to sacrifice that, but we want leadership of the Arabs afterwards, after you pass away. And you tell them, this is not up to me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives leadership to whoever he wants. I cannot promise you anything like this. So no tribe accepted him. But some people did, individual people. And Suwaid ibn Samit was a Christian. He was from Medina, and he liked the teachings of the Prophet. And he accepted Islam. Just individual. Iyas ibn Mu'az, the second name here. And I'm sorry for I know if you're not Arabic speakers, the names do not ring right, and it's very hard to remember. But you can all remember the first name, Iyas. Iyas, he was a teenager. And he accepted Islam at the hands of the Prophet. And when he went back to Medina, that was on the 10th year of Hijrah, he kept inviting all the people. And then it rang a bell with the people of Medina. One boy just awoke the whole city because he was telling them, this is the Prophet that the Jews promised us. And people knew that the Jews were for a purpose. They were in Medina for a purpose because they knew that the last prophet is going to be in that area. So they settled Medina centuries before to escape persecution, and they lived among the tribes for many years. but also they're expecting from their from their scriptures, which exist up to today. Up to today, now you'll find that the Bible mentions that the last prophet will come in the valley of Becca with 10,000 of his followers, which manifests itself 8 years later, or a few years later. So he went back to Medina, invited everybody to Islam, and just rang a bell. So on the 11th year, when the Prophet approached the delegations from Medina, which was called Yathrib before Islam, so 6 men accepted Islam. Most of them from the tribe of Al-Khazraj, which was the biggest tribe in Medina. And they went back, and next year they came, that was the year 12 of Hijrah. 12 people came, and they gave allegiance to the Prophet ﷺ. And they asked him to send one of his companions to teach them Islam. So he sent Mus'ab ibn Umair. Mus'ab ibn Umair is a very interesting story. He was one of the richest people in Mecca, and when he became Muslim, he was abandoned by his family. So, but he was a very, very, based on his education being among the elites of Mecca, he had his diplomatic way. So we always need to appreciate. The Prophet ﷺ said those who are good in ignorance or before Islam, they are good people after Islam. Because they have the tacts, they have the diplomacy, they have education and so on. So the moral of the story is that always appreciate people with skills, people with education. So, and the Prophet ﷺ was very good at that. He recognized people, skills, and he knew how to attract them and to bring them. So he was sent with the delegation to Yathrib, and he was very successful. Just in 1 year, he was extremely successful. And next year, big delegation came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they gave him allegiance and asked him to immigrate. During that time, after the Prophet came from Taif, which was a very difficult time for him, he had the trip called the Isra wal-Mi'raj. Most scholars say that was a trip in his physical body. Very few people say it was a vision. Actually, almost no scholars say it was a vision. So Prophet ﷺ was physically taken by Angel Jibreel from Mecca to Medina. And he said that he rode a kind of an animal which is bigger than a mule and smaller than a horse. It's called al-Buraq. And he said it's very fast. It's very fast. It just took him from Mecca to Medina, Mecca to Jerusalem in just few minutes. And in Jerusalem, from Jerusalem, he ascended to the heaven. It's a very long story. It can spend a whole lecture talking about it. But in summary, he ascended from a place called the Dome of the Rock, which basically, when Muslims went to Jerusalem many, many years later, the only person who knew that location was Umar ibn Khattab. And Muslims built a mosque over it. It's very close to Masjid al-Aqsa. And Masjid al-Aqsa is called the farthest mosque in English. From the Dome of Rock, he ascended to heaven. So he met Prophet Adam. He met the second heaven. And we don't know if these are physical heavens, but it replies to the people who think that the 7 heavens are part of our universe. The fact that we cannot, so some people will say, the first heaven is the atmosphere and the second heaven is the solar system. This is just scientists who try to play smart in our time. But these are spiritual heavens, and the 7 heavens mentioned in the Quran really are beyond our senses. It's not the universe. Our universe always referred to the Quran as Sama' al-Dunya, the lower heaven. So when we go to the 7 heavens, these are spiritual, unseen. We don't know what's physically consisting of, where they are, but that's where he went. So he went to first heaven. He met Prophet Adam. And he met John the Baptist in the second heaven, and Jesus, son of Mary. but they were cousins, as you know. Yes.
What's the name of John the Baptist in Arabic?
Yahya. 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 And then on the third heaven, he met Prophet Yusuf. And Prophet Yusuf, he said, he's the most handsome human being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. The fourth heaven, he met Idris. In the Bible, it's Enoch. And the fifth heaven, he met Harun, the brother of Prophet Musa. And the sixth heaven, he met Prophet Moses. And the seventh heaven, he met Prophet Ibrahim. And in the seventh heaven, beyond it, he went to Sidrat al-Muntaha. He described it as looks like a tree, place huge, but looks like a tree. And beyond it, he seen al-Bayt al-Ma'mur. He said Bayt al-Ma'mur for the angels is the equivalent of the Kaaba on earth. So it's a place where the angels go and make pilgrimage from the beginning of creation. They will keep doing that pilgrimage till the end of creation. He said that the angels are so numerous that most angels do it once during the whole creation. So every day, thousands of angels come and do the pilgrimage in al-Bayt al-Ma'mur. After beyond that, Jibreel told the Prophet ﷺ, I cannot go beyond. I'm not allowed to go beyond. And he told me, but you are permitted to go beyond that place. So he stepped forward, and the Prophet ﷺ, he talked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some scholars, and this is a minority, I think Ibn Abbas and Aisha, they had different opinions. Aisha is the wife of the Prophet ﷺ. I think Aisha said, no, he did not see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to him. And Ibn Abbas thought that he saw the Prophet. The Prophet saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the Quran actually settles the matter, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In one of the surahs, in one of the ayat, it says that no human being can talk directly to God except through a veil. So he could not have seen Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although we will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we are resurrected on the day of judgment. But in this life, we cannot talk directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except through a veil. So the Prophet ﷺ talked to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but did not see him. That's the majority opinion. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained that there are 50 prayers for him and his followers. When he returned back, he passed by the prophets. So Prophet Musa told him that your people will not tolerate 50 prayers. So asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reduce it to. So he went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, asked him to make it easier for his ummah. It was reduced to 5 prayers, which are the 5 prayers that we pray now. By the way, if we follow the sunnah of the Prophet and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, probably will be doing the 50 prayers. So think about this, that when we remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we get out of the house, get into the house, in every occasion, when you get into your car and you make the invocation, there are more than 50. So he taught us so much that really we are in constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Isra al-Mi'raj was an extremely event, very important. In a sense, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have shifted the leadership of prophethood and humanity until the day of judgment to the ummah of Muhammad. And that is very significant, and it represents the reason why the Jews of Medina, they knew he's the last prophet, but did not accept him because of that. Because he did not promote the idea of the chosen people. They thought, and they still, until today, unfortunately, they think that they are the chosen people. And nobody is beyond them, even though they are sinning, they are killing, they're massacring people, but they believe that that's their privilege because they're the chosen people. The Prophet ﷺ, when he went back to Medina, to his home in Mecca. He went through some events. He saw a caravan coming to Mecca, and certain things happened during that caravan. They have lost the camel. They went to look for it, and when he went back to Mecca and told the people what happened, some Muslims rejected Islam. They didn't believe it. A few people said, we don't think this could happen. This is beyond our imagination. How could he go to Jerusalem in one night, and how he would ascend to heaven? And Quraysh thought that really they are so happy that now they have a proof that Muhammad ﷺ lost his mind. And they went to Abu Bakr, his best friend, told him, your friend said that he went to Jerusalem in one night and came back. And not only that, he went to heaven. Now, Abu Bakr answered in a very logical way. He said, if he said it, it's true. I believe in more than that. I believe that he gets revelation from God. So why wouldn't I believe that? And the Quraysh started to quiz the Prophet, told him, okay, if what you're saying is true, describe to us Jerusalem, because many of the people in Quraysh were traders. That they went to Jerusalem, and he described it to them in a very accurate description. And then he told them, by the way, on my way back, I met a caravan, and they had lost their camel. And I was thirsty. I stopped and drank from jars, water jars. And when the caravan reached Mecca a few days later, they confirmed this. Quraysh was very interested, just try to prove that Prophet ﷺ was not saying the truth. So they really were stunned with that. But that was when the 5 prayers started. So the 5 prayers are the most important thing in Islam, and they were given to the Prophet from above 7 heavens, directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why he said that the prayers is the most important thing in Islam, the 5 prayers, after the declaration of belief. I touched upon this, that then the Prophet ﷺ, after that, he started talking to people outside of Mecca. He got a delegation from Yathrib. 6 men have accepted Islam. And then the next year they brought another. 12 people came. And Mus'ab was sent with them to teach them about Islam. That year, from the 12th year after Revelation to the 13th year, and we're talking about Revelation, not Hijrah, Revelation. Many people accepted Islam in Medina. And that was based the influence of the young boy, Iyas, and the influence of Mus'ab, who came later and taught people about Islam, and also the constant reminder of the Jews that we are here because we are waiting for the last prophet. So that always a factor that opened the hearts of the people of Yathrib. And they told the Prophet on that year, on the 13 years of the Revelation, 73 men, among them 3 women, came and asked Prophet, you are oppressed in Mecca, come to Medina, we will protect you. And they made what they call the second oath of Aqab, that they will protect him like they protect their families, they protect their children. And who was present with the Prophet during that? His uncle, who was not still Muslim, but he told the people of Medina, we protect him, and if you cannot protect him, don't invite him to your city. So make sure you know what you're doing. And he wanted to make sure that the safety of his nephew, and they promised to protect him as much as they can. This is a map of Arabia during the few years of Dawah and Islam, and shows the different tribes. The next map I want to see also to show you is the political map of today. So today Arabia has been divided into several countries: Yemen, Oman, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait. So all of these are political entities. And all of these political entities are the result of colonization in the 19th century and the 20th century. Right? It's important to understand that there are no borders between these people. They speak the same language. They're all Muslims, same cultures. Tribes that are in Yemen, really, many of them are in Saudi Arabia. So all of these borders are artificial. But just remember that. The immigration to Medina was a very well planned, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected the Prophet, but he always was teaching us that we have to follow the logical way of making da'wah and taking actions. So he asked all the Muslims to start immigrating at the beginning in a very discreet way, so that Quraysh will not be alerted or anything. But as Quraysh found that many Muslims are disappearing, they started suspecting where they're going somewhere, and they knew they were going to Medina. So they decided to assassinate the Prophet. They found that they cannot let him go. And they decided either arrest him or assassinate him or banish him from Mecca to somewhere where he have no contact with his supporters. And Angel Jibreel came to the Prophet and informed him of the plot of Quraysh. And Abu Bakr asked the Prophet ﷺ, would you permit me to immigrate? Because everybody has left. And the Prophet ﷺ told him, wait, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give you a companion. And Abu Bakr felt that his companion is going to be the Prophet. So he was very happy to hear this. And he started preparing. Abu Bakr was very rich, and he prepared for the trip and used all of his connections and to prepare for that trip. Quraysh when the Prophet immigrated, Quraysh did not, although they surrounded his house, up to the night before he left his house. They surrounded his house. And they brought one young man from every tribe. They wanted, when they assassinate him, that his blood would be spread among all of Quraysh, all of the city. So Banu Hashim, his family and his skins, will not be able to fight all of the tribes in Quraysh. So it's a long story, but the Prophet passed through that siege by the Quraysh, and they didn't see him. The Prophet ﷺ said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructed him to recite verses from the Quran, and he passed through them. They didn't see him. And he asked his cousin Ali, because the Prophet ﷺ was the trustee in Mecca. He had all the belongings of people who are traveling. It's like use the Prophet ﷺ to entrust him with valuable things and other stuff. So he left Ali ibn Abi Talib to return the trust to his people, to its people. On his trip, very interesting things happened. He met somebody called Suraqa ibn Malik. The Prophet ﷺ headed south. Medina was north. So he planned to go south, so Quraysh would be basically looking north. So he was followed by somebody called Suraqa ibn Malik. And Suraqa, when he came close to the Prophet ﷺ, his horse sank into the sand. And then every time he get to his horse, it happened to him 3 times. He would fall from his horse, and his horse would sink through the sand. Then he knew that the Prophet ﷺ is protected. So he approached the Prophet ﷺ. He told him, I know that you will prevail. Give me a letter of protection. And he gave him a letter, told him, give him safety. And that letter, he brought it when he was captured many years later. When the Prophet entered Mecca, he showed it to the Prophet, to the Muslims, and they let him go. He met Ma'bad, which was a very poor woman, and that was she has her sheep around her, and when they passed by her, Abu Bakr asked her whether they can drink from the goats that she had. She said they have no milk, and the story says that as soon as Abu Bakr started milking, the Prophet ﷺ started milking the goats, a lot of milk came from. So they drank and ate from it, and Ma'bad was very impressed that how come this happened. So all of these things are mentioned in the books of biography of the Prophet ﷺ. Ma'bad is mentioned particularly for the books of the biographies because she is the only woman who gave a detailed description of physical appearance of the Prophet. Most people could not describe the Prophet because they used to say, when we look in his face, it was shining. We could not really look constantly at the Prophet. It was, nobody gave a description of the Prophet except Ma'bad. When her husband came and asked her what happened, told him the story, told her, you know what, this is the man that Quraysh is looking for. And they both accepted Islam. They knew the status of the Prophet ﷺ. There are many other people they met on the way, and also during their presence in the cave of Thawr, that's where they spent 3 days before, the daughter of Abu Bakr and one of his servants used to bring them the news from Quraysh. So they have constant intelligence of what is happening around them. They reached Medina 2 weeks later. They started in the months of Safar. That's the second month of the Arabic months. And they reached in the third month on the 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal. That's where they went to Quba. But they reached the center of Medina a few days later. Yes.
You say 8th of Rabi' al-Awwal, they reached Medina.
Quba. They reached Quba, the outskirts of Medina.
But yeah, the question is our Hijri year starts from Ramadan. But what we
No, the Hijri starts in Muharram.
Right. But what are the Hijri year started when he migrated to Medina?
No, the year starts in Muharram. Mm-hmm. So the year he immigrated is year 1 of Hijrah. So it does not start with the moment so Muharram is the beginning of the year. The third year month of the year is the Hijrah. Yes. So he established a government. You wonder what not more everybody in Medina accepted Islam, but basically it shows you that when a small group of people unite, their strength is much more than their numbers. So many people accepted Islam from both tribes, the Khazraj and Aus. And the majority of people in Medina were either Jews or idolaters, pagans. But basically, the unity of the Muslims there gave them a lot of strength. And the Prophet ﷺ established what's called the brotherhood between the Muslims of Medina from Khazraj and Aus and the new immigrants. The people came with no properties, nothing. So there was a social problem there. So he established a brotherhood where every family from the Muslims in Medina would adopt a family from the Muslims in Mecca. It was a very unique and very interesting concept. He built the first mosque, which exists up to today. It's called the Mosque of the Prophet. And he wrote a kind of constitution, and it was documented between the different clans, Muslims and non-Muslims, including the Jews of Medina. There are several chiefs in Medina, like Abdullah ibn Ubay, and there was another person who was supposed to become the king of Medina. They became very alienated from the Muslims. because basically they saw their hopes for leadership have been shattered. The Jewish tribes, from accounts from their own rabbis who became Muslim, they recognized the Prophet ﷺ. But basically, Islam did not approve the concept of chosen people. And this is from very early in Islam, that all human beings are equal in the front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, except by piety, which is very alien concept to the concept of the chosen people. And you can see it today, basically. Just you see it in Palestine, the settlers, they think they can go destroy properties of Palestinians, they can evict them from their home. The government supports this. By law, the government go to the Palestinians who live in Jerusalem or live on the West Bank. They say, we have every right to take your properties. If anybody comes, they found some very flimsy legal, that's all, it's a cover in front of the whole world. Just they want to show the whole world that it's a state with legislations and law. But basically the underline of all of this is that you have no rights. You are not Jewish, you have no rights. So that's the main idea of Zionism today, which is a continuation of this concept of the chosen people. Their main rabbi, Abdullah ibn Salam, accepted Islam. So the Prophet ﷺ, to convince the Jews, he conferred with them. He told them, do you know Abdullah ibn Salam? They said, yes, he's our rabbi, he's our leader, respected person. So Abdullah ibn Salam told them, I became Muslim. I invite you to become Muslim. Then they told him, you are the worst person, you are stupid, you don't understand anything. So they rejected him. Many Jews many prominent Jews accepted Islam. Abdullah ibn Salam, Ka'b al-Ahbar, these were very prominent rabbis. But the people who were racist, stick the idea of the chosen people, did not. And this formed the people that later on caused a lot of problems for Muslims. Also, they didn't like the Muslims coming from Mecca because they were skilled traders, and the Jews in Medina monopolized the trade. So the market in Medina was monopolized by Jewish traders, and they found there really strong competition coming to them. This is a painting of the Medina. It's not true. I just wanted to show it. It is a painting done by people who, Muslims all around the world, who try to imagine. They never went to Medina, and they try to portray the masjid based on descriptions given to them when people went to pilgrimage. So it shows you that how people are always anxious to go to and see the masjid of the Prophet. The only thing they made right is that the green dome.
There's no dome. I mean, it wasn't a dome at that time.
I think this is much later, yeah, from centuries later, yeah. So this is the how it looks today. Yeah. Actually, it has changed a lot. I mean, this picture probably is more than 30 years old. The new masjid has expanded tremendously. This is how it looks today. So, last year we went to Medina, and we were in a hotel that overlooking the masjid of the Prophet. It's very beautiful. So we were having a dinner on the top floor of the restaurant. They give you the view of the first and second year in Medina had many events. The first one is fasting of Ramadan and prohibition of alcohol. The Arabs were very heavy drinkers. It is mentioned that during the marriage of Ali and Fatima, one of the companions, they had a dowry, and the dowry was camels. And that companion came, he was drunk, and he saw the camels, he thought they were some ghosts or something, he slaughtered the camels. So he was under heavy drinking. And as you know, the prohibition of alcohol in Islam came very gradually. At first, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that it has some good, some bad, because some people trade and economical. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, do not approach prayer when you are drunk. So when you're drunk, don't pray, so that you know what you're saying. But then in the second year of Hijrah, it was forbidden. And that's when Surah Al-Baqarah was revealed. It says alcohol is forbidden. That's the longest surah, and second chapter in the Quran, and it's the longest chapter in the Quran. It has many prohibitions and many injunctions and commandments. Also, the transfer of the Qibla where Muslims pray, Muslims used to pray towards Jerusalem. And somehow they did not feel comfortable praying towards the Kaaba because of all the idols that were there. So they used to pray towards Jerusalem. But the Quran came also in Surah Al-Baqarah, the second chapter in the Quran, instructed them to direct their prayers towards Mecca. So it was preparation really to the changes that will come in the future. Also, an important event happened is that Ali and Fatima got married. And it's a long romantic story, but Ali is the cousin of the Prophet, and Fatima is his youngest daughter. All of his other daughters were married already. It is mentioned, it's funny story that Ali ibn Abi Talib went to the Prophet, although he lived in his household in Mecca for many years. And remember, he gave him the trusts to return it to the people in Mecca when he left. So Ali went to visit the Prophet, and he sat down. He didn't say anything. And the Prophet told him, Ali, what do you want? He didn't say anything. And the Prophet, he knew. He told, do you want Fatima? So Ali, he said yes. Okay, so he made it easy for him, but he was very shy asking. Although in his household, the Prophet ﷺ is very close to him. Okay, they are cousins. Ali was the son of Abu Talib, and the Prophet ﷺ was the nephew of Abu Talib. So they were cousins, but he was much younger. And the Prophet ﷺ had, as I mentioned to you, he was that respect among the companions. What is it?
Could be uncle.
They are cousins. No, not cousins.
Ali and Muhammad was cousins. So Fatima became nephew of Ali.
No, not nephew. The Prophet and Ali are cousins.
Right.
Fatima is the daughter of the Prophet. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the relation between
She is the daughter of his cousin.
daughter of his cousin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're not his nephew. Not his niece, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Niece is the daughter of your brother.
Right.
We're not allowed to marry
Right.
descendants of our brothers.
Yeah.
On the second year, Quraysh started threatening the Muslims, and then the Quran revealed that based on the threats Quraysh was giving, and also they confiscated all the properties of the Muslims in Mecca, so that they can start fighting them. So, given that the torture and persecution of Muslims and many Muslims that they killed, the threats against Muslims in Medina, and confiscation of Muslim properties in Mecca. So Muslims started having expeditions intercepting Quraysh trade caravans. And this really the periods of tension between Quraysh, actual physical tension, started from the second year of Hijrah until the 8th year of Hijrah, for almost 6 years. So the first encounter, big encounter, was Muslims got the intelligence of the news that there is a big caravan where all of Quraysh had put all of their wealth into it, coming from Syria, headed by Abu Sufyan. So the Prophet ﷺ took an expedition of 317 companions to intercept this caravan. And that's mentioned in chapter 8 in the Quran. It's called Al-Anfal, the spoils of war. As soon as Quraysh heard this, and Abu Sufyan had a lot of, he tried to evade the Muslims and take different routes and so on. And he sent a messenger to Mecca telling them that his caravan is under threat. And all of Mecca mobilized because all of their wealth was in this caravan. So they went to face the Muslims with 1,300 armed men, and Battle of Badr resulted. This was basically a skirmish when you look at it. From historically, it was a small skirmish, but it had huge repercussions in history and in Arabia. This is the battle, the location where that battle happened. Basically, Abu Sufyan really tried to evade the Muslim army that went out of Medina, and the army coming from Mecca came and stopped the Muslims near Badr. There are a lot of details. I want to skip that, but that battle resulted in a complete routing of the Quraysh army. 300 people completely routed the Quraysh army. Quraysh lost 70 people. The amazing thing is that all their leaders were among those 70. All the prominent people of Mecca were among those 70 people. 70 people were captured. Even Abu Lahab, the uncle of the Prophet, who was very much opposed to him, died few days out of sadness for what happened. He was the only leader left, and he died just few days after the Battle of Badr. And as for those 70 who were captured, among them was the Prophet's son-in-law, Lu'al ibn al-As. So he asked them to be ransomed. The poor among them, they could ransom themselves by teaching illiterate Muslims to read and write. And that was a very strong message that the Prophet ﷺ encouraged people to be educated. Abdullah ibn Ubay, he was one of the leaders of Medina who was not Muslim until that point, accepted Islam out of hypocrisy. He felt that he cannot stop in front of the tide, so he accepted Islam, pretended to be a Muslim. And then the Jews in Medina, among them Banu Qaynuqa, which was a big tribe, they felt that the Muslims are getting really strong, and if they don't stand to them now, they have no hope to stand to them later on. So they started challenging the Muslims. The Prophet ﷺ had to face them, and he asked them to leave Medina. He had told them, you can take your properties, your wealth, everything you take, but you cannot, you are violating the agreement that we have amongst us. The amazing thing throughout history is that all of those Jews, they caused some problems to the Muslims later on, but throughout Islamic civilizations, Muslims always cooperated with them. The Jews prospered under Islamic civilization. Many of them served as ministers in Andalusia, in Spain. The Jews and the Muslims created a great civilization together. So that was basically a confrontation with the people of Medina, who could not accept the prophethood of the Prophet ﷺ, but Islam does not force people. As long as they are willing to be peaceful and to cooperate with Muslims, would not persecute people based on their religion. Not like what happened in Europe, where they were constantly harassed, constantly persecuted throughout history. This is a picture of where the Battle of Badr took place. After the Battle of Badr, Quraysh felt so much humiliated. Some tribes accepted Islam, found that the Prophet ﷺ now is the leader. And so Quraysh decided that they need to take their revenge. They have to to recover their reputation as the leaders of the Arabs. How can they let a small group of Muslims just pick the rug from under their feet? So they went and invaded Medina the next year. And this time they gathered 3,000 strong force. And the Muslims met them near the mountain of Uhud with 700 men. Abdullah ibn Ubay was supposed to join the Prophet, but he refused to help, and he withdrew his people. He withdrew his 200 of his people just before the battle, which was kind of betrayal, and showed his true face and his true intentions. The Muslim army prevailed at the beginning, but they got a setback and lost 70 martyrs in this battle. Among them was Hamza, the uncle of the Prophet, who was younger than the Prophet, but he was a strong supporter among the companions. And Mus'ab ibn Umair, remember Mus'ab? He was the young man that was sent with the early Muslims to teach them about Islam. They passed up. They were martyred. Even the Prophet got wounded. And the Muslim army had to retreat to the slopes of the mountain. When you think about this, there is a wisdom for what happened. But basically, the companions did not obey the Prophet. He gave them very strong instructions to defend the rear of the Muslim army. And they did not follow the instructions of the Prophet. So that led to the defeat. As soon as this, the Quraysh recovered their prestige and they felt that their honor is restored. So many tribes who aligned with the Prophet ﷺ, they realized, that was just the Muslims were just a fluke. They are not really worth having any agreement with them. They start breaking their agreements with the Prophet ﷺ. Who next would try to challenge the Muslims? It was Banu Nadir, which was another group of Jewish tribes in Medina. They said, well, maybe that's our chance now. So they started challenging the Prophet ﷺ, and another encounter happened with them. Still, the Prophet ﷺ prevailed over them, and he told them, you have to leave Medina. Just if you violate the agreement we had, you have to leave Medina. And they were evicted from Medina. This is a current contemporary pictures of where mountain of Uhud is in Medina. It's close to the airport if you go to Medina. And before I show you, I want to show you how the battle was. This is Medina, and Uhud is in the front, and the battle happened somewhere here. It's very hard for any invaders to come from any side, because these are volcanic rocks. No army can cross it. And these are very heavy gardens and palm trees. No army can cross it easily. So that's why Quraysh decided to come from the north. This map is for another battle. I'm going to talk about it. Sorry. So 2 years later, Quraysh decided right now they need really, after their confrontation in Uhud, now they want to finish the Muslims. So they went with all the tribes in Arabia, they gathered 10,000 men. In the standards of Arabia, this is a huge army. They never have formed such army. It's all tribes, and each tribe cannot garner more than a few hundred or a few thousand fighters. But now they united with many other tribes, particularly from the city of Khaybar in the north, and they gathered 10,000 people. And they came and surrounded Medina. The only place they could attack Medina is, as I mentioned, is from the side of Uhud. So the Prophet ﷺ asked his companions, and what do you think we should do? So Salman was a Persian, and you know, there are people from different places. There are Abyssinians joined the Prophet. There are people from Persia, people from the Roman Byzantines. And he said, I saw the Persians dig trenches. Let's dig a trench. So the Muslims spent almost a month after they heard of motion of the Arab tribes. They dug trenches. And these trenches were stopped the people from invading Medina. It was a very effective way to stop them. And the Arab tribes were not familiar with this kind of defense, and they did not have any means to cross the trench. Some horsemen succeeded in crossing the trench in some narrow places, but they were easily repelled by the Muslims who were defending Medina. The siege lasted for 1 month, and it was a very difficult time for the people. That was one of the most difficult times, even more difficult than the defeat of Uhud, because it lasted for a long time, and people could not even go and gather the crops to eat, so food became very scarce. No caravans were coming from outside of Medina, so it became very difficult for the people of Medina. Something happened. A man called Na'im ibn Mas'ud. Na'im ibn Mas'ud is one of the very prominent people from Taif. And all of a sudden, he came to the Prophet and said, I want to become a Muslim. Just nobody knows what changed his mind, what brought Islam to his heart. He came, I want to become Muslim. I'm going to join you in Medina and fight with you. Seeing the situation of the Muslims and how difficult it is, he said, I want to come and defend you. The Prophet said, you are one man. What are you going to do? There are 700 of us, and we are unable to break this deadlock. So why don't you try? People don't know you're Muslim. Maybe that's an asset. Go and do something. And that's what he did. He went to Quraysh, and he heard that the last Jewish tribe in Medina were cooperating with Quraysh without the knowledge of the Prophet. So they were in the south, and Quraysh would attack from the north, and this tribe called Banu Qurayza are going to attack from the south. That's something Muslims had no idea it could happen, something they were not prepared for. Na'im ibn Mas'ud found that's where he could help. So he went to the Jewish tribe and told them, you know what, you live in Medina. If you cooperate with Quraysh, and Quraysh can leave any time, you'll be left to the Prophet. He's going to crush you. And why don't you ask for Quraysh to give you some of their leaders to stay with you not as hostages, but as a guarantee that Quraysh will not really desert you. So they said, oh, we'll do that. And then he went to Quraysh and told them, I have got the news that Banu Qurayza are cooperating with the Prophet, and they are going to betray you. And they are going to ask you to have some hostages from your leaders to give them to Muhammad. So the trick worked. Quraysh, when they went and talked to Banu Qurayza to see that they were really standing with their agreement to attack the Muslims, they said, yes, we are still with you, but you know what? We want to make sure that you are serious and you're not going to desert us, so give us some of your leaders to stay with us so we know that you're serious. Quraysh realized that what Na'im ibn Mas'ud told them is correct. So they broke they said they did not fulfill their agreement, and Quraysh did not leave their people amongst them. So Quraysh, it was a stalemate, and then after 30 days, a hurricane. And Arabia does not have hurricanes, but that's what happens. The hurricane came and just destroyed their camps, and they had to leave. So that battle was nothing happened in it. And it was basically a stalemate. Quraysh could not prevail. Their plans were not successful. And when it was over, the Prophet, peace be upon him, told his companions that we will not be attacked again. Now it's our time to go and attack. So they were preparing for the next. This is where the trenches were built during that battle.
You're talking about the trench, how deep and how wide?
It was wide enough so that horses cannot jump over it. So probably, I don't know, but maybe 10 yards or so. It was deep. You see, it was not very deep. So a horse, if the horse falls, it will not get hurt. But it's enough time for the people to throw arrows at the horseman and the horse. So they cannot get out of it. Basically, if they fall in, it would take them time to go out. That would give enough time to soldiers defending Medina to go and finish them.
It's enough wide, not to cross, they cannot cross.
Yeah, they cannot jump over it. They could not jump. Maybe like 6 to 10 yards.
How long?
It's covered all the opening between the volcanic rocks. Medina is surrounded by volcanic rocks.
From one mountain to another.
Yeah. What is it?
From one mountain to another.
No, these were volcanic rocks. These are volcanic rocks. Horses cannot go them. They have very sharp rocks, and it's very hard for an army to cross it. People can hardly walk on it, but horses cannot, or camels for the same. Yes. Shall we stop here? Well, we'll continue for a few more minutes. Maghrib is at 7:30, so we have a few more minutes, inshallah. So the next year, the Prophet ﷺ saw a vision that he should perform the smaller pilgrimage, and that's mentioned in chapter 48. And he traveled with Muslims, 1,500 of his followers, lightly armed. They were not armed. And they wear the clothes of Ihram. And they camped outside of the city of Mecca, in a place called Hudaybiyah. So, and he sent Osman ibn Affan, one of the companions, and also he was his son-in-law, to communicate their intentions to go and make pilgrimage in Mecca. Quraysh refuses, and they sent Suhail ibn Amr. And Quraysh was feeling tired of this conflict, and the most important thing for them was trade. So their trades were suffering, and their economy was faltering. So they sent Suhail ibn Amr to negotiate a truce for 10 years. And the Prophet ﷺ accepted it. And there are many conditions for the truce. Among them is that Quraysh said that if anybody from Quraysh accepts Islam, they cannot join Medina. They will stay in Mecca. But anybody in Medina who rejects Islam, leaves Islam, let him come to Mecca. And the Prophet accepted all of this. The companions were very upset, Omar in particular. He said, aren't we on the truth and they are on falsehood? Why do we give them these concessions? And the Prophet ﷺ told him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not let us down. Suhail ibn Amr, it's an interesting negotiator and one of the smart people later on appeared in Islam after becoming Muslim. So to fulfill the truth, as I mentioned, Muslims will not perform pilgrimage that year, but they can do it the next year. So basically, Quraysh wanted to establish their authority on Mecca, that you cannot enter despite our desire. And that was really breaking with Arab tradition as leaders of Mecca, that nobody would be stopped from performing pilgrimage. But still the Prophet ﷺ accepted it. And also any tribe who wants to enter into alliance with the Prophet, they can do that. Any tribe that wants to enter into alliance with Quraysh would accept that. So now the Muslims established themselves as on equal footing with Quraysh. So after all of this, those 6 years, Muslims established themselves as on equal footings with Quraysh. Later on, those Muslims who became Muslim in Quraysh, they escaped from Mecca, although they were required by the Prophet to not allow them to come to Medina. So they escaped from Quraysh and positioned themselves on the caravan routes, and they started raiding Quraysh caravans, which basically Quraysh didn't like that. I mean, they had the tools just to have freedom of trade and so on. So they begged the Prophet to change that item in the agreement that they will be allowed to join him in Medina. So once they join him in Medina, they have to abide by the agreement, the treaty that they had with Quraysh. And that's what happened. So on the 7th year of Hijrah, Prophet ﷺ performed the pilgrimage for 3 days. That was the condition of the treaty. The presence of the Muslims was very emotional. And many leaders, as you know from Badr, Quraysh had no leaders except Abu Sufyan. Abu Sufyan became the de facto. He was the leader of the caravan that escaped. Became the de facto leader of Quraysh. And all the others were younger people. Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn al-Walid. These people, when the pilgrimage, they saw the Muslims, they became Muslim. Amr ibn al-As, Khalid al-Walid. Khalid al-Walid was the general that defeated the Muslims in the Battle of Uhud. So then, really, a big change was happening. And the Prophet ﷺ said that he had now an obligation to go outside of Arabia. So far, he has been calling people in Arabia. So he sent emissaries to the Byzantine emperor, the emperor of Persia, the kings of Yemen, Bahrain, Oman, and Iraq, and the leaders of the Christian Copts in Egypt. He was welcomed by the people of Yemen. The Copts of Egypt received him with great respect, and even the leaders of the Christian Copts in Egypt sent presents to the Prophet ﷺ. Heraclius was very, being from the people of the book, knew the scriptures very well. He told the messenger, he said, I knew there is a messenger coming after Jesus, and this is what all Christians today deny, but the Christians of the time, they knew. And if you read the Bible today and the Old Testament, you will know very clearly that there is a prophet coming at the end of time. Not the coming back of Jesus, but there is prophet. Jesus was asked by his companions, are you the one? Are you the last prophet? Jesus said, no, I'm not. And nobody would tell you from contemporary Christian leaders would tell you who was that person that Jesus was saying he's not that person, and many other signs. But he was suspicious. He was hesitant, and we know that the leader of Abyssinia became Muslim, and Najashi had already accepted Islam, but his priest and the people around him refused. So he said to them, I was just testing you. But he hid his Islam. And actually, when he died, the Prophet ﷺ made funeral prayer on Najashi, the leader of Abyssinians. But to really summarize what happened, Heraclius said, bring me, because Muslims were trading with them all the time, bring me one of the leaders of Quraysh. I want to talk to him. So who was by chance there? Abu Sufyan, the leaders of Quraysh. So Heraclius asked him just, who is closest in kin to this leader, meaning Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abu Sufyan said, I'm the closest, because his daughter was married to the Prophet. Habiba was one of the wives of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, Habib. So he was very close to the Prophet. And although he was his enemy, but his daughter was married already, who became Muslim and was married to the Prophet ﷺ. So he asked him, he said, I wished I could lie, but I never, Arabs hated to lie. It dishonored the person. So he asked him, was he from notable families? He said, yes, he's among notable families in our city. Was he, before he claimed to be a prophet, was he honest? He said, yes, he was honest. And we knew him to be among the most honest in our city. Then he told him, who follows him? So Abu Sufyan said, the only thing I could say just to debilitate him, the destitute and the poor are following him in our city. He said, I thought I'm really diminishing the value of the prophet by saying this. And Heraclius answered him, all prophets are followed by the poor and the destitute, like Jesus. So Heraclius answered him, he told him, I knew there is a prophet coming, I didn't know he's coming from amongst you. And Heraclius was hesitant. But he told his entourage and his court, what do you think? They said, we'll never follow him. We're not going to give up our way and our culture. So Heraclius just backed down. The emperor of Persia was very arrogant, and he almost threatened the messenger of the Prophet ﷺ. When the news reached the Prophet, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to destroy his kingdom because of his reply. So these are small events. They look like small events or encounters, but they had huge repercussions. Something interesting about the Byzantines, many years later, Amr ibn al-As, he was one of the leaders of Quraysh, who became Muslim, was asked about the Byzantines, and he said, the Byzantines, I knew them, I dealt with them. Their leaders are soft on them, and they respect their leaders. And that's why the Prophet, and he mentioned something, the Prophet ﷺ said that the Western people or the Christians of the West are going to exist until the end of time. And Amr al-As said, yes, because they have good leadership. Their leaders are soft, and they consult, and this is a good character. So that would let them as a civilization persist until the end of time. The Prophet ﷺ, our scholars basically have said, and based on the teachings of the Prophet, that a nation will exist as long as it has justice. And it doesn't matter whether it's Muslim or non-Muslim, but even a Muslim nation that does not have justice will not prevail. So that's really a great warning against injustice. And you're going to see, if we have time, I'm going to show you the last sermon of the Prophet ﷺ. So on the 7th year of Hijrah, that's very, very significant. Amr ibn al-As, Khalid ibn Walid, Osman ibn Talha, these were the young leaders of Quraysh. The next generation after Abu Sufyan became Muslim. And that was really the end of Quraysh. So these young people were the hope of the Quraysh for the future. The Prophet ﷺ, on the 8th year of Hijrah, a tribe allied with Quraysh attacked members of a tribe from Khuza'a, which was aligned with the Prophet. And they killed them in the sanctuary inside Mecca, in the Kaaba, which is a huge crime. I mean, everybody from the time of Abraham, nobody could be touched inside the sanctuary. And they killed them in the sanctuary. And the Prophet ﷺ told Quraysh, your allies violated the agreement. And he told them, that's it. We're not going to accept any more insults and any more transgressions. And he moved to Mecca with 10,000 of his followers and opens Mecca in a bloodless coup. So basically he entered Mecca. Quraysh did not have leadership already. They lost their power. And the Prophet ﷺ, Abu Sufyan tried to reach out. and he went to his daughter, she was the wife of the Prophet, and told, do something, just, and his daughter just received him with respect, and told him, it's over. So Al-Abbas, which was the uncle of the Prophet, he's the one who brought Abu Sufyan to try to negotiate. And Al-Abbas was already a Muslim by that time, and told Abu Sufyan, just, why don't you come accept Islam? Abu Sufyan had doubts, just did not. And anyhow, he realized that there is nothing he can do. But the Prophet, to soften him, he made a statement as he was on the outskirts of Mecca, sent his messenger, said, whoever in the Kaaba will not be hurt. Whoever is in his home will not, so it's basically announced like a curfew for a few days. Whoever is in the house will not be hurt or touched. Whoever is in the house of Abu Sufyan will not be hurt. And he just gives some to fulfill the ego of Abu Sufyan, just to end up the animosity. And he entered the Kaaba, and many people in Quraysh gathered in the Kaaba, want to see what's going to happen. They knew they were safe there and so on. And the Prophet, after he went around the Kaaba, he destroyed all the idols. That's the first thing he did. He went inside the Kaaba, destroyed all the idols, and then he sat down and asked the people, what do you want me to do? And they said, you are our brothers, you are our son from our city. He said, go, you are free. He did not tell them you have to convert to it. You're free. Antum tulaqa. So he showed a lot of mercy and respect to the people. I should stop here, probably. The last thing left is the... probably I can go through it. After Prophet entered Mecca, just all of Arabia started accepting Islam. The next year, when the Prophet went back to Medina, and that was something that the people of Medina were sad when they entered Mecca. They thought the Prophet is going to go back to his home, but he went back to Medina. He said, I'm part of you, you are part of me. So he felt that they are the ones that brotherhood of Islam is much stronger than brothers of kin and his relatives in Mecca. So he went to Medina, and all of Arabia entered into Islam. All of the tribes stirred their emissaries and their leaders, and they accepted Islam. On the 10th year of Hijrah, he invited all Muslims to perform pilgrimage with him. So he sent messages that I'm going to perform the pilgrimage. That's the only time he performed the pilgrimage. Remember, he did Umrah in the 7th year of Hijrah. That was the small pilgrimage, but not the big pilgrimage. And the small pilgrimage, you can do it anytime. It's called Umrah. So he went to the Mount of Arafat, where he performed he taught us. We all follow the same steps that he did when we go to Hajj, and 100,000 Muslims followed him. And in the day of Arafah, he gave the farewell sermon. It was called farewell sermon afterwards. People didn't know that was his last. They did not have microphones or media, so he had people repeating what he said to reach the 100,000 people, particularly Safwan's, who had a very powerful voice. And Al-Abbas, his uncle, also has a very powerful voice. That's the last thing I want to share with you. It's a very long sermon, but I wanted really to share some of it. And he told people, lend me an attentive ear. I know not whether after this year I shall ever be amongst you again. He knew that he fulfilled his message. And the Quran says that you fulfilled it. That was one of the last verses to be revealed in the Quran. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. He told people to respect this month, and then started making commands. When had 100,000 people who want to spread the news, he said, Allah has forbidden you to take usury, interest. Therefore, all interest obligations shall henceforth be waived. This is a big sin in Islam, to deal with usury, to take interest and so on. It's only in our time it's called interest, but in all times, in the whole world, in the Christian world, and ever, it used to be called usury. It's a very ugly name. And he said, all interest obligations shall henceforth be waived. Your capital is yours to keep. You will neither inflict or suffer any iniquity. Allah has judged that there shall be no interest, that all the interest due to Abbas, his uncle, who's very rich, is waived. Said, he's telling me, I'm starting with my family. So my uncle will not take usury anymore. And then he said, all vengeance before Islam are forgiven, are waived. And he said one of his relatives, he is waiving what's arising from the murder of Rabi'a ibn al-Haris, one of his relatives of the Prophet. He warned them against Satan. He said, for the safety of your religion, beware of Satan. He has lost all hope that he will be able to lead you astray in big things. So beware of following him in small things. So Shaitan, Satan, know that Muslims will worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any Muslim know that this is basically a red line, will never go beyond that. But he will lure us into other things, other sins and so on. One of the most important things he stated, because the Prophet ﷺ really was always worried about the people who are oppressed in the society. So he said, "O people, it is true that you have certain rights with regard to your women." And the Arabs were very oppressive of women. And actually you can see it up to today, actually. But they also have rights over you. Remember that you have taken them as your wives only under Allah's trust and with His permission. If they abide by your rights, then to them belongs the right to be fed and clothed in kindness. Do treat your women well and be kind to them, for they are your partners and committed helpers. This is a big difference with telling the women are your partner, and that's what the Quran states. But many of the people who came to pilgrimage, they did not know all the messages of Islam. So we had to emphasize this. And it is your right that they do not make friends with anyone of whom you do not approve, as well as never to be unchaste. He reminds people of the 5 prayers, the Hajj, and the pillars of Islam, and then emphasizes the equality of all men. All mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, nor a non-Arab has any superiority over an Arab. Also, a white has no superiority over black, nor a black has any superiority over white, except by piety and good action. Okay, so this is 1400 years before the civil rights movement in the US. And then he said a very important message, so Muslims are not misled. O people, no prophet or apostle will come after me, and no new faith will be born. Reason well, therefore, O people, and understand words which I convey to you. I leave behind me 2 things, the Quran and my Sunnah, basically the tradition of the Prophet. His sayings, deeds, and approvals. And if you follow these, you will never be astray. And then he told people, all those who listen to me shall pass my words to others, and to others again, and may the last ones understand my words. He basically told people, go convey these messages, be the messengers of this what I'm saying. And that's and then he asked the people, did I fulfill my message? And people shouted, Allahumma na'am, you did. Rolled like thunder throughout the valley. And the Prophet raised his 4 fingers and he said, be my witness, O Allah. He said, raised his finger like this, said, O Allah, be my witness that I have conveyed your message to your people. And then after that, immediately, one of the chapters, short chapters in the Quran, near the end of the Quran, was revealed. When comes the help of God and victory, and you did see the people enter God's religion in crowds, celebrate the praises of your Lord, and pray for his forgiveness, for his often returning in grace and mercy. Many Muslims understood this is just celebration of victory. But the companions, very close to the Prophet, started weeping. So they understand that the Prophet ﷺ is going to pass away. So this is, while everybody thought we recite it today and it reminds us of the victory of the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet of victory of Islam, but the close companions, so it's a proclamation of the closeness of the death of the Prophet ﷺ. And he died 3 months later on the 12th of Rabi al-Awwal, 11th year of Hijrah. So 11 years after he immigrated. And that's it. Jazakumullah khair for, I'm sorry I didn't keep enough time for questions, but Maghrib is another 5 minutes. Any